Our family farm was very instrumental to the prosperity of our family. The farm was originally purchased by my grandfather, Gerrit Van Holcomb, in the 1920s. It was one of 4 farms that he owned. He was a very successful farmer, not only with the rotation crops, but with orchards. Growing up, the farm had apple, peach, cherry, pear, mulberry, and black walnut trees. I would help my mother every summer, canning the fruits from our orchard as my 2 older brothers worked the fields with my father. It was a wonderful place to grow up.
One of my favorite farm recollections was during the summers when my mother would decide to make rhubarb mulberry pie. It was an event that involved the entire family. My mother would first cut the dusky red rhubarb stalks and get them started soaking in the kitchen sink. Next, she would enlist the help of my 4 older brothers and myself, and we would walk to the base of the old mulberry tree, majestically holding court at the perimeter of the land set aside for our lawn. My brothers would scramble into the leafy dome, while my mother and I would spread a blanket, stitched together from flour sacks, underneath the lofty branches. The foliage was so thick you could hear rather than see the efforts of my brothers as they would shake the limbs of the mammoth mulberry while berries rained down onto the blanket stained with memories of previous pie-making adventures. Once she was convinced we had enough berries to make sure we left the dinner table for a week with purple-stained lips, my brothers would carry the blanket to the house, where my mother commandeered her children into a pie-making assembly line that would make Sarah Lee envious. This is just one of many memories from my childhood growing up on the farm.
My great-great-grandfather, Marcelius Van Hemert, came over from the Netherlands in the 1800s. He was a hard worker, but a poor man. He was a sharecropper. My great-great-grandfather, Kees Van Hemert, was a sharecropper. My grandfather, Marcy Van Hemert, was a sharecropper, and my father, Reuben, was initially a sharecropper. He married my mother, Marjorie Van Holcomb. She attended Central College in Pella and was a school teacher in a 1-room schoolhouse and taught grades 1 through 8. My grandfather, Van Holcomb, sold the farm to my father and mother, probably with good terms, but that changed the future of our family. My mother always insisted on good grades at school, and from that, 3 of her children have doctorate degrees and 2 have bachelor degrees. America is truly a land of opportunity. This is a good example of a good woman being worth her weight in gold.
Golden summer days filled with gathering warm eggs from the hen house, soaring through the warm, humid air on a creaking rope swing, sipping on a bucket seat suspended from a metal wire connecting the hayloft in the barn to our windmill, riding behind my brothers on our horse, Queenie, as we roamed the lower pasture, bringing lunch to my father and brothers wherever they were working on the farm, and catching fireflies in the twilight while running barefoot through the cool evening grass. However, the best memory of all was simply being surrounded by my family on our family farm. When I was a student at Rutgers College in 1981, I took a course in environmental management, and I wrote a paper on the conservation methods implemented by my father when he and my mother purchased our family farm. There is an excerpt from that paper that I wrote after interviewing my father. I grew up on a combined crop livestock farm in south central Iowa, where my father was the first farmer in the area to implement the idea of contour farming. He also staunchly applied a 5-year crop rotation plan of corn, soybeans, oats, and alfalfa. In a conversation that I had with my father earlier this month, he estimated that because of the rotation system he used and the fact that he spread between 200 and 300 loads of manure on the soil every year, he was able to cut back the use of fertilizers and insecticides by 1/2 as compared to other conventional farmers in the area. His assessment of the effect that these conservation measures had on his end-of-the-year profit margin was twofold. One, The alfalfa was always fed to the livestock, which were later on sold when the market was favorable. This, in turn, made up for the monetary difference of not continually planting a cash crop. And two, the yields from the fields that had a cover crop planted one year were substantially increased the following year when corn or soybeans were planted, since the alfalfa provided the essential cyclic flow of nutrients.
Well, being the oldest, I have many good memories about my life on the farm. This is one of my favorites. I was around 8 years old, driving Dad's old 8N Ford tractor going west on the south side of a hill on the East 40. We were loading loose hay as I was pulling a hay wagon with a hay loader behind. When I got to the end of the windrow, I'd shut the tractor off because the tractor didn't have power steering, and well, I didn't have strength to make a 180-degree turn with any accuracy to start a new windrow. I actually remember it was a sunny day in the afternoon. Another time I was about 12 years old, cultivating corn on the 3rd 40. The 8N had a rear-mounted cultivator with a front mount guide. One time when I looked back, I noticed I'd cultivated about 25 feet of corn out. I got off real quick and put the corn back up right in the ground. Never said a word to Dad about this, but many years later, he shared with me that he watched me replant the corn from the hill to the east. Never did I know at the time the mistake my lack of concentration had made.
I was only 2 years old when we moved off the farm. My memory of the farm comes through my father, Reuben, after I had moved out of the house. I was visiting my parents and recall my father stating he was taking the Dodge white pickup out to the farm. In the ensuing conversation, he told me he was going out there to watch them put field tile in to help the drainage of the soil. I remember commenting back, "Dad, that cannot be interesting to do." I remember him looking at me and stating that since his retirement, he found great joy in watching them put tile in to improve the ground quality. Lyle Van Hemert, 6th child of Reuben and Marjorie Van Hemert.
OSHA would have had a cow if they'd caught me on top of the 40-foot Hanson silo round at the top with corn silage. Mom said nothing at the time, but shared with me many years later she was so worried that I might misstep and fall to my end. I also remember catching pigeons in the new barn, bring them to Grandpa and Grandma's house in Pella. They loved pigeon soup. No one will ever make the memories I made 70 years ago. May someone else's son also make memories on these acres. Be blessed. Stan Van Hemert.
I am deeply sorry that we have to sell this piece of rich Iowa farmland that has been part of my life for over 70 years. But time passes on. May this land give its new owner blessings as it has given our family. Mark Van Hemert.